Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a pretty specific historical claim. It's about the auto industry and, the path electric cars took, or maybe didn't take.
Mm,
We're unpacking an article here. It's called Fiat Electric Car Sabotage History. Found it on listdatagenerale.com.
that's right. And it makes a fairly striking argument. It suggests that certain decisions attributed specifically to Fiat historically played a, well, pretty significant role in maybe hindering the progress of electric vehicles, or at least their adoption.
Okay, so our mission today really is to get into the source's argument, just what this one article is claiming. The basic idea being that there might have been, I guess, a conscious effort or maybe actions that had that effect anyway,
Right.
that steered the car world away from electric, kept it focused on combustion engines
Yeah.
longer than maybe it needed to be.
Exactly. Think of it like exploring a potential road not taken for EVs. But, and this is key, we're looking only through the lens of what this specific article claims.
Got it. So purely based on this source, where does it start the story? What's the time frame?
The article really zooms in on a particular period. We're talking late 1990s, maybe early 2000s. And it argues that even back then, EV tech, well, it wasn't perfect, obviously, but it was viable, for certain things, city commuting, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And the source claims Fiat actually had projects going, models even, like an electric version of the Panda it mentions, that showed this potential.
Right. So the source isn't saying that tech flat out didn't exist or wasn't being looked at. It's saying Fiat had something cooking.
Precisely.
And then what? What does the article say happened?
Well, this is kind of the core of the claim, isn't it? It argues that instead of, investing more, developing these early electric ideas further, Fiat made strategic calls to essentially discontinue them.
Discontinue them. Okay.
Yeah. The article points specifically to a big shift towards putting R&D, production effort, almost all of it, into diesel engines. Diesel was, seen by many then as the efficient future.
Okay. And the source presents this as, well, more than just a kind of unfortunate business decision, like a bad bet.
Exactly. That's the key part. The article suggests these actions weren't just like a passive lack of interest. It frames them as actively damaging to the sort of budding EV movement at that specific time.
Actively damaging. How so?
Well, the source argues that by ditching their own electric programs and at the same time pushing diesel really hard, Fiat helped create, or at least contributed to, a market and maybe even a regulatory environment that just wasn't friendly to EVs. It suggests this sort of created a vacuum, maybe even actively undermined how people saw electric cars. Like, were they really a viable option, a desirable one for the average person? The source implies Fiat's actions suggested no.
Wow, that's quite a claim. The idea that one company's strategic turn could, significantly slow down a whole other technology path. The source seems to be linking Fiat's move directly to keeping the internal combustion engine on top for longer.
It does, yeah. The article suggests that by effectively taking a potentially major player Fiat out of that early EV game and championing diesel at the same moment, the company, at least in this source's interpretation, helped lock in the status quo.
Right.
And the source implies this wasn't just a short-term thing. It had lasting effects on the industry's path for years, potentially delaying the wider EV adoption we're only really seeing accelerate now.
Okay, so let's try and summarize the core takeaway just from this one source we've explored. It's presenting a historical argument. It points to specific actions it attributes to Fiat, mainly late 90s, early 2000s. And argues that these actions, in its view, actively hindered EV development and adoption back then, at a pretty crucial moment, suggesting basically that the EV timeline could have looked very different.
That sums it up well. This deep dive into this specific source's claims really highlights something interesting, doesn't it? It shows how looking at historical claims about corporate decisions, like these alleged ones about Fiat, can shift our perspective, on how technology develops, the forces shaping industries, even why things are the way they are today.
Absolutely. And that leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to maybe chew on, building directly on this source's premise.
Yeah.
If, and it's a big if based solely on this article's claim, but if established companies could significantly influence, maybe even delay, a promising technology like electric cars for their own strategic reasons, well, what other potential innovations throughout history might have been held back, sidelined by similar market forces or corporate decisions?
Yeah.
And maybe more provocatively, how might our world look fundamentally different now if those innovations hadn't hit those roadblocks? Something to think about.